because we all know how that works for me, right, Corey?
Some of us know.
Well, there's one time where I started YouTube, tried starting recording right away, forgot to turn down YouTube, had to start over twice, and somehow managed to just shut YouTube off.
Nice.
Yeah. Where did you? All right, cool. There we go. All right, well then, we'll get this shit shut. Now, did you listen to or watch an episode?
I listened to.
Okay, I don't do any of the music. Whenever.
Yep.
Okay. Then I'm going to start recording. Welcome to episode 46 of the Podcast of Terror, a production of Galactic Notcasts. This is a podcast about all things scary. I'm your host, Matt Stein, and with you, as always, is Jack. How are you, Jack?
And I am also Jack. I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good. If you were able to listen to Corey's episode of 90th Percentile, which aired technically the day that we're recording, but when you hear this, it'll be last week, that joke will make a whole lot more sense. So go listen to that.
Comparison to the episode, which makes absolutely no sense, other than the fact that Dan and Jack are extremely entertaining people, and I was excited to be a part of it.
Jack and Jack. Yeah, that was a fun episode. It definitely had me laughing. For more on this podcast, including show notes, contact information, subscription links, go to gncast.com/pot. You can chat with us on our Slack channel during our shows by going to gncast.com/signup. And while you're over there, you can subscribe to our newsletter as well. The podcast of Terror is incredibly spoiler heavy. We don't really care if we spoil it for you. So if you haven't watched what we are watching, which this week is 1985's The Stuff, please pause. Go do that. Come back. We'll stay put. And I swear a lot. I swear a ton. Corey really likes me warning you in case you're new and you haven't heard the word fuck before. And if that's the case, then whatever. But
if you've never heard the fuck before and you're not sure what it means, ask your parents, kids.
Ask your parents what it means to fuck. Tonight we will be reviewing 1985's The Stuff, like I mentioned, with our very special guest, who's the host of The Final Cut, celebrating 10 years on YouTube, his 1,000th video, and his 100th episode of The Spoiler Room, Mark Krawczyk. I spent all day practicing your name.
You did very well. That was very well done.
How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well. Honored to be on the show finally. We're listening to a few episodes. Really big horror fan, so I appreciate being on the show. So thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, we're super pumped to have you. I know I have creeped on you through the interwebs for quite a while now. It's always fun to see you reviewing movies that I want to see, so I know if I don't have to see them or not. So if you are new to this episode, or this show, not this episode, we're going to cover some stories, some news from the week, and then we'll go ahead and move into our review of The Stuff.
If you're not new to this episode, let us know how we did before we finish, and we can know if we need to continue all the way through or not.
Yeah, just go ahead and email halfway through and let us know if we should just stop.
Just mail it in, fuckers.
Yeah. Wow, that was really rough. I have to use I have to use Microsoft Edge to view our show doc because I use Chrome to actually run the Hangout, and Edge just fucking shit the bed on me.
Okay.
About that. But I know that our first story is about the video game Outlast. Corey, hopefully you have it up so you can kind of take the reins. But Mark, do you play video games at all?
I do play video games, not as much as I used to, but I still play video games. I've been playing a lot of the kids one, Skylanders, but yeah, I'm not afraid to admit it. I love Skylanders, collectible figures, and video gaming, but I play horror video games too, all range of games. I'm good at some and not good at others. So,
have you ever played Outlast?
No, I have not.
So this story pertains to Outlast 2. But the first one is the shtick of the game is like it's really dark and you use a camera and the night vision on the camera to see. And in the first one, you are escaping a insane asylum. I think I played like 10 minutes of it, got scared, and turned it off, and never turned it on again. But in Outlast 2, it appears that you are a photographer or something, and your plane crashes, and you stumble upon like some insane cult. So the story is that someone got the first 20 minutes film footage of them playing the first 20 minutes, and it's actually incredibly terrifying, which is awesome because a lot of times video games that are supposed to be scary aren't really scary. And with Outlast 2 coming out and Resident Evil 7, there is high hopes for actually terrifying video games.
Yeah, we're looking at finally getting some stuff that is. I mean, we've talked about it a few times, the Friday the 13th video game that went through the Kickstarter. There's a lot of stuff coming to VR that's building up. We're seeing more and more of this, but obviously we've gotten to a point where the graphics aren't the holdback. It's just, can they storytell? Can they make the gaming feel immersive? And I think a mix of doing the films that are like the found footage things where you're staring through the camera as the person filming it the whole time has given us a mix to make these things feel enriched in what they're doing, so that when you play the game, it's like being in the movie that you've been watching, only it's that next step where you actually get to control things. And so, yeah, for people who've only been seeing stuff like this, that aren't old hat like us who are side scrollers or a little fucking blob eating other little fucking blobs around a maze, this has got to be pretty uncanny as far as the experience goes.
I'm excited. I don't know if I'll actually play it, but I will definitely watch it on YouTube.
You'll go get yourself some adult diapers.
Good thing my wife works for the company that makes adult diapers.
Yep.
Get them for free.
As long as it's just not jump scares in the game.
It's definitely jump scare-ish.
Yeah,
and that's you know.
Yeah, in the footage I saw, there's a few scenes where like you round a corner and like there's just a toy horse that's sitting there and it's rocking by itself. So that was that got me excited, and it's similar to the Resident Evil 7 demo that came out, where like you look at there's this one room where you walk in and there's 3 mannequins facing the wall, and when you turn back to them, they've all like moved and gotten closer and are looking at you. So it's stuff like that where it's not quite jump scary, but it's like ambiance, just freaky.
Yeah.
There's definitely jump scares because I don't think you can get away from them. But
he says he goes from a rural freak show and into a Catholic school, and nothing says scary to me like a Catholic school. I have bad memories growing up, although I might have been the most evil thing there. It looks really good. I think probably my favorite part is it's, at least in the video, it's listed as Outlast 2 Licked by the Devil.
That's a great name in itself. That makes it worth playing just for that.
Yeah, the original game trailer that came out was the video was just an upside down cross, and then there was like some audio over the top of it. The concept of cults really intrigues me, and I think that's why I'm most excited for this game, just because there's something special about people taking what is supposed to be like a generally good idea and just twisting it and being just fucking crazy.
Yeah, there's never the good guy cults. There's never the cults that are like, hey, we organized a fundraiser and we sold brownies and did all these great things for the neighborhood.
Those are called normal people.
Yeah, they're still cults. I guess that's soccer moms. Soccer moms are kind of cultish.
Yeah, that could be. You could do a whole movie on that.
Soccer moms. There's nothing wrong with that. Next up, we got Brian Fuller saying that the Hannibal revival talks can resume. I never got into the Hannibal show. Maybe that makes me an asshole, but I have either of you.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it quite a bit. It was though I watched it. I didn't watch it on broadcast TV. In fact, most of the series now I don't watch on broadcast. My wife and I would binge them on Hulu. We'd see an episode was going to expire, and so we'd watch the 5 that are on there or whatnot. And I enjoyed it because it had a good horror feel. Some of these shows don't have a horror feel to it, and that one had a creepy horror feel to it. I like the guy they got to play Hannibal. It got
Mads
a little.
Mikkelsen.
Yes, he was fantastic in all honesty, and it got a little weird in second season, but the third season it picked up and improved, and it was really going strong. And then when I heard it was canceled, I'm like, oh, come on, you're just getting good again. Every show has its ups and downs, but on the whole, I like the mature content and the storyline and what they came up with. I thought it was interesting, an interesting exploration into it. So.
Yeah, and Fuller says 2 years after the last airing of the show, we can investigate our options. August 2017 is when we can actually start talking about it. That's when we would have to see what the rights are for the character and for the story. So I think what happened is they went to Netflix after NBC canceled it as a series, and everybody was like, okay, Netflix needs to pick this up.
Yeah.
I know diehard Hannibal fans, and they were very anxious to see this continue, and I agree. I thought it was a very well done show, but it was kind of a weird. It was on Friday nights on NBC. It was hard to keep up with if you weren't catching it live or DVRing it and paying attention to it. But it was so beautiful. The gore was shot in such a way that it was almost attractive, and what it commonly gets called in the people who watch is it's a murder show for foodies. Because the stuff that he's cooking, it's totally macabre, but it's also strangely appetizing, and you develop a strong connection to the characters, even though they're kind of vile. And Mads Mikkelsen is a very good actor. When it started, I was like, okay, but how is this guy, who I've only seen with his eye bleeding in Casino Royale, going to play Hannibal Lecter? And he does it in a way that, it doesn't disrespect anything that Hopkins did with the character, but he also doesn't tread the same trail. He makes it his own, and it completely works. And Hugh Dancy, who's gone on to be in a show about a cult called The Path that's over on Hulu now.
Either of you watched it?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I don't do Hulu, so...
No, I haven't watched it yet. I'm still, as far as cult shows go, I'm disappointed at what they did with The Following.
Yeah. Man.
I really enjoyed The Following, but they kind of screwed it up in the third season, and I think it was because they knew they were on their way out, which is sad because that show actually was really interesting too for a horror fan. I'm like, wow, they're just hitting all the crazy killer, cult type tropes and the stuff that they were covering. I'm like, this is awesome. It's great to see this in a show and people taking risks with a show like this. A difference other than your Walking Dead dose. It's good to see risks like that. So it was sad to see the writing kind of fall because they knew the writing was on the wall of his leaving. So, but The Path does look interesting. I might watch it eventually. But,
we're like 3 episodes in, and it's slow.
Yeah.
Where Corey got us to start watching Outcast, which is a Showtime show. That's like on right now. So like we're more interested in waiting till the next Outcast episode than watching The Path, which I have the entire season at my disposal. And I like the Path, and I like the concept of it. It's just, I don't know.
See, and then the idea of Hannibal being on Netflix and them losing any type of what little network restrictions they may have had, because they really got away with a lot as far as gore-wise.
Yeah.
That is exciting to think of them being able to do that. So.
And you kind of want to be careful. You don't want to go so far over the top that it really turns off your base audience. I think that they did such a great job of making something that could just push the boundaries of network TV enough that it was like, oh, this could be on Bravo or AMC, and NBC is doing this. But I don't believe that enough people really believe that NBC would, one, make a show that good, or two, give it air time and viewership the chance to build. And they did. They did everything they could. Maybe not as far as advertising, but the show got 3 seasons, and it was surprising to me every season that it got to come back and it got to stay strong. But still, in the end, the viewership wasn't there, and there was only so much they could do for it. So there was some questions about whether or not they would be able to go forward in the story. They didn't have the rights to use the Clarice Starling stuff or anything as far as actual Silence of the Lambs, so they were doing a lot of stuff with Manhunter, and there was questions at how far they'd be able to go into the story to get those other points. Right. But now it may be that when the contracts as they are up, as far as who has the rights to do this stuff, maybe that's when they can do it. And so that's what it seems like. It's like we have to wait until this point where everything can be renegotiated and then it can find a home. So maybe that's why Netflix passed on it right then, is it's like, well, if we just bump it a little bit. People aren't afraid of shows coming back a couple years later.
No.
I mean, we have shows coming back 20 years later now. So this can really work, and everybody who was involved with it seems excited for it to come back. They've been playing it close to the vest.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope that this happens, and it would be nice to just sit down and do a run through of the whole series.
How long? What is there? 2 seasons? 1 season that was on TV?
3.
Oh, there was 3. Holy shit, am I behind? I think I watched like half the first season, and
It's shorter seasons, though. They're only 12-episode seasons. They're kind of the British length of seasons. So
yeah, or even the AMC seasons, which are usually short or long seasons that are split up into halves, because that's allows you to have a tighter storyline. It makes it a bit more compelling. You don't get like where you get tired of it. I mean, we're binge watching people now. We're a generation of people who can sit and watch a whole series in a run if we want to, and some people do. But it's still nice that for the writers, especially when they're going to air, that they can tell a storyline that's concise and only does the stuff that it needs to do, as opposed to having all these filler episodes in between that maybe aren't as good, because you're getting away 5 to 10 minutes of the actual story that you're trying to follow, and another 40 minutes of the extraneous bullshit.
Well, and that's just because TV. I mean, they've taken that structure over the years. It's changed since I was a kid. You don't have to try to rush to 100 episodes to get syndication anymore. With streaming and Hulu and that, there's not necessarily that need, and I prefer it that way. I prefer the 12-episode season. You know, I mean, Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, worked better as a 12-part, the 12 miniseries than when they went to the 20-episode season, because you could tell which ones were filler and which ones were the main storyline, and you're just like, okay, let's get through this filler episode. Now you don't have to. Now you can do a 12-episode season and have it on Hulu and live for a year while you shoot the next 12 episodes. Plus, that frees up everybody's schedule to do more stuff, because actors, you'll get bigger names because they don't have to feel tied to a show for 20 episodes, which is almost a year, to where they can't work on features or something,
Yeah, and I think what we're finding with Netflix and Hulu and AMC and all these things is that story is king.
Mm-hmm.
If you want people to get attached and build a love for your characters, it's not I have to show up every week and sit through commercials and hope that I'm getting the parts that are actually interesting to me, as opposed to just like whatever we can do to fill time so we can get our extra 20 minutes of Prius ads in there. We're giving you the most compelling content we can, because that's all we have to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you see shows, even things that are not of this dramatic nature, like Master of None or whatever, where they can adjust the time of the episodes to, well, we need an extra 5 minutes, or we need extra 10 minutes here, or we can do this 1 in 20, and they have the opportunity to do that because it's what suits the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much nicer than what we've grown accustomed to from TV, what they've locked us into for years.
Well, and the shitty part with the way that most TV shows worked, at least when I was younger, was it would start in September and it would run till May, and you get 24 episodes broke up over 9 months, which means you get a month, 4 or 5 episodes, and there's a 2-week break, and then you get 4 more episodes, and then there's 4 weeks off for Christmas. It's really hard to get into a series, so I almost prefer a 12-week show that runs through summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Regardless if I watch it on TV or I DVR it, it's just nicer. It's more concise. It's easier to really get into it. And 24 episodes is way too long for a TV show, unless it's a sitcom where the story doesn't really need to tie into each other. There's just minor backstories, and the rest is just tomfoolery.
Well, yeah, and your sitcom is only 20 minutes long if you cut out commercials. So, I mean, you can get away with 24 episodes of 20-minute long episodes, whereas you get an hour drama, I don't want to sit through 20 hours of a story that could be wrapped up in 12 or 8.
Even the cop drama shows like CSI and Bones and shit, like those are 20-ish episodes a season, hour long. Each episode has its own season, but I still feel like it's too long.
Yeah.
Like, we have like 14 Bones episodes sitting on our DVR, and I just don't care to watch them.
Yeah, it gets to a point with some of those shows though too, where you've seen the formula so much that it becomes less interesting, and it's because they've had to be formulaic that you lose interest in the show. You know, I can watch a CSI and I can tell what the first story is, what the second story is in the first 5 minutes, and pretty much make a guess as to who the killer is in those things or what happened, because I'm just so accustomed to it after so many seasons and so many fucking spin-offs. And that's why I'm more excited about a show that will surprise me. You give me a Justified, you give me Mr. Robot, those kinds of things that just fucking blow your mind episode to episode because they don't hit a formula. It's just a way better experience to me. And I don't mind having something on in the background while I'm cooking or playing on my phone or whatever, those kind of fillers. But I can get filler from a game show. Yeah. I can get filler from the stuff that doesn't cost as much to produce and isn't bringing up writer rooms that are just like, well, I moved on from a CW show and I've made it up to CBS, and here's where I try to write a King of Queens or whatever. I get it. It's fine, but like anything, you have to fill so many hours of TV with content, and it's nice when you see people who are like, I'm not here to fill hours of TV. I'm here to give you a fucking story, and you're going to be riveted the whole time.
Well, and that's another kind of issue, not issue, is that before the internet, the advent of streaming, there was only so much TV that could be had. There was only 100 channels with 24 hours a day to fill content, and that was it. Now you have Hulu, you have Netflix, you have everybody and their mother on YouTube, you have all the Amazon. It's like there's just so much shit to watch that it's really difficult to kind of weed out what's good and what sucks.
And what's weird is you're seeing the TV networks try to do their own made-for-internet content. CBS doing the new Star Trek series, not for television, but for their streaming service. And it's like, well, why? Is it going to be something different than you do on your network? Or is it just because you feel like you might be able to con the fans into paying you for this stuff instead of just putting it on the air? But it's going to feel like the exact same thing you could get on a Tuesday night on CBS. So I don't know. I mean, Star Trek's a pretty easy thing to say people are going to come and watch it. But what do they follow that up with? What is the next thing? And what is going to keep eyes on that service and keep our wallets open to keep paying for it beyond that?
I know Netflix needs to stop with the Adam Sandler films. They need to stop.
I heard that last one wasn't that bad.
Oh, the last one that they came out with? I don't know, but the Ridiculous Six was horrible.
So bad.
I mean, but that's Adam Sandler films. I mean, I don't know that it's any better or worse than what he's been doing in theaters when he played the guy and his twin sister. That was fucking horrendous. And yet it was still out in the theaters. It was just one of those things. And he was still a bankable star for some reason. People watch them. I don't know why. I certainly don't know why people pay to go see them. But now it makes sense. It's like, well, I don't want to admit openly to the public. I don't want to be seen in an Adam Sandler movie. I certainly don't want to bring a date there that I ever want to have sex with. So I'll just watch it on Netflix, and that's okay.
I'll be honest. Like, I had really hoped for more from the Ridiculous Six, just because I love Billy Madison and I loved Happy Gilmore and all that. And I guess that there was that part of me that wanted Adam Sandler to be back,
right?
And he's not. And that's my hesitation with seeing the over is because he really fucked the dog on the Ridiculous Six, and now I'm a little butthurt.
I think there's a point where Adam Sandler's shtick, which is the Happy Madison style stuff, has worn down because now he's 40. Like Kevin Smith used to say, no one wants to see Jay and Silent Bob in their 40s because then it's just sad. I think Adam Sandler's the same way. You can't do Billy Madison when you're a guy who's got kids, it doesn't work the same. He tried that with the father one, where he was the dad of Andy Samberg, and it was just so dumb that. But he gets the opportunity to do films that are family oriented, which is kind of where he needs to lean. They're not great movies, but they're harmless, and it breaks the dumb up between different characters that all get to have their dumb moments and their sweet moments to make them a little bit more endearing.
Well, he needs to take the path that Jim Carrey did. I mean, Jim Carrey, even though he plays Jim Carrey, he did taper off and try to do some other things as he got older, because I think he even acknowledged that, I can't really do this. Though they did come out with the Dumb and Dumber 2, but outside of that, I mean, he's done horror. He did, was it 23, and he did was it the Truman Show, and I loved him in his dramatic stuff. Even the one with the cinema, where he. That stuff. He started doing other things because I think he realized the ha-ha plastic man type shtick is wearing thin, and I can't keep doing that forever.
Yeah. Well, you must be the person that we asked to call in and tell us how the show is going to go, because you're seeing in the future. The next story we're going to is Eli Roth is directing Jim Carrey in horror film Alistair Arcane. So this is a film based off of a comic book series from IDW by Steve Niles and Bryn Burns. Steve Niles did the 30 Days of Night. He's done quite a bit of horror stuff in comics, and has almost single-handedly, after Mike Mignola and Hellboy, kept horror comics alive the last 10, 15 years. That's really been what he is focused on. But Eli Roth is trying to break out of doing just his own stuff and trying to get into bigger films. I haven't seen anything yet that's really pulled me over to his side of things, but he is doing the new Death Wish, and I guess Bruce Willis is in that.
Yeah, Bruce Willis.
I don't know. I wasn't screaming for more Death Wish. Once Bronson died, I didn't think we needed that back. That's like getting Dirty Harry, and we're going to have Channing Tatum be the new Dirty Harry.
Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue.
Yeah, right.
If Channing Tatum can bite my tongue anytime. It'll be easy to be on his dick. So, but this is Jim Carrey, like you said, breaking out of
Wait. Are you saying that Channing Tatum's going to bite your tongue, which is on his dick, which means Channing Tatum's going to bite his own dick?
Yeah, he won't really. It's going to be really hard to tell the difference between me and Jonah Hill. So, he's a beautiful, beautiful man. So Jim Carrey is going to be playing the main character, Alistair Arcane, and it's going to be more of a horror-based film. It sounds like, let's see, Alistair Arcane is a Los Angeles weatherman who returns to his hometown to host a midnight horror show, and under the guise of mad scientist, he performs little skits until local sponsors balked at the gore of his show. And then an incident with two kids leads to him being put on trial, which breaks his spirit, and he dies. But not long after, grisly activities begin to occur, and only the kids have the power to thwart the curse that he has laid upon their town. So it sounds a little bit Freddy Krueger-ish.
I looked at Alistair Arcane, the link in the show, or in the story that takes you to the Amazon page, and just the drawing alone makes me think that Jim Carrey will do fine, because the drawing reminded me of his character Lemony Snicket.
Which they show, the picture that they use in the article of Carrey is as Lemony Snicket. Now, on the other hand, that movie bombed, now it's being turned into a Netflix series starring Neil Patrick Harris.
I did see the makeup. He did look it, but I was just like, was anyone really asking for this?
I think a lot of people would like to see... I was talking with somebody at work the other day. He was going to try to expose his son to some horror stuff his son's 8 years old, and he's like, well, my wife's going out of town, and my son is interested in some of the stuff I watch, and I wanted to get him to watch some horror movies while she's not there telling me, you fucking idiot, why are you playing horror movies for your kid? And he was trying to figure out if he could have his kid watch Alien and John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh,
and I'm
geez.
like, dude, when I was 8 years old, I probably would have seen stuff like that. I had an uncle who used to like to scare the shit out of me with some really horrible movies, but I don't know that you're going to get away with it. I think The Thing is way outclassing where an 8-year-old kid is. But I think that there's something that needs to be done to have horror made for children.
Mm-hmm.
And while the Lemony Snicket stuff isn't necessarily horror, it's about horrific things happening to kids, and it does give that kind of air to it. It's not quite Goosebumps, but it is sort of Roald Dahl.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is a good thing for kids to have. We need more kid content anyways, but we need kid content that make kids not just watch cartoons on PBS and Clue and other stuff. They need to see things that is going to explore themes and ideas that may freak them out a little bit, so that you could have those same kind of conversations with them that you would have, as opposed to making them watch things that will make them shit up the walls for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, admittedly I watched movies like that when I was a kid, which probably explains a whole hell of a lot. But my kids haven't seen The Thing yet, but I did when I was younger than them. But you're right about the horror. I mean, that's what I kind of liked about the Spiderwick Chronicles when they did that movie. As much as people, it didn't do well, but I liked it because it went places I didn't expect it to for a kids movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it was darker, it was scary, but it wasn't John Carpenter's The Thing scary or Alien scary, but it was tense for kids. But at the same time, I think they need that too, because otherwise, I mean, they'll hit a certain age to where they'll think it's hokey, but then they don't want to watch a real, more serious horror film either. So it's a balance. But yeah, they need more kid type orientated stuff. So
Yeah, we had the homicidal homemaker on our show,
Mhm.
the last week's episode, and she was talking about how she found horror movies with her parents and how they would watch them together, and that's what instills the love for this genre, and that's what instilled in her a reason to create her YouTube channel and the show that she does now, which is a completely different spin. It's not like she's making horror movie stuff, but she's making things that are themed around horror movies that she's seen and loved, and turning them into recipes and housemaker tips and crafts and stuff. And I think that's really cool. And this instills things in children's imagination that it makes the fans for tomorrow. And we can't just expect that they're going to find that on their own without helping them find it as kids. That's where the love for these things come from. And sometimes the things that scare you are the things you feel afraid of for a while, but then you sort of obsess over, and you find it in yourself to say, well, how would I scare people, and what kind of stories would I tell? And then you grow up to be Clive Barker or a Stephen King or somebody who is, but the next generation of it.
Well, and it gives kids an outlet too if they start having those feelings or whatever. I in all honesty, darker thoughts or what, I give you an outlet to how to express that other than, say, more dangerous or other avenues. You can go, hey, I can write about this. I'm comfortable writing about these dark ideas I have. It's a different outlet. And plus, yeah, watching it with the family together, it's okay. You've got parents there, or your viewers there to explain stuff if you get too little intense. So you can always stop and pause too if it gets too crazy.
Pause and talk about it. So it's the idea of watching these things with your kids, not just sitting your kids down in a room and say, okay, sweetie, you go watch the stuff, and I'm going to be here making a cream pie, and we'll see how you react when I try to feed it to you afterwards.
Here, just go watch Hellraiser. There you go. This is a good movie for you to watch by yourself. Yeah.
By the way, here's Daddy's Rubik's Cube.
Hey, the Hellraiser was the first movie that it scared me so badly that I buried the VHS tape in a garbage can.
Wow.
Yeah, I was less than 10 years old,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's a good story. But and funny that Corey mentioned our guest last week, but also not funny because she was our guest last week. But the last story that we have this week is that they are opening a state-of-the-art horror restaurant, which caters exclusively to the fans of the genre. You have to be 18 years old to go. If you're 14 or older, you can be accompanied by someone who's 18. It doesn't say where it is, though, which pisses me off, but it sounds really, really fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's still kind of underground as to who's doing it. There's two entrepreneurs who wish to remain anonymous at this point, but it's in development, so they haven't said where, they haven't said when, but the idea is that it's slightly upscale but still affordable, and it's going to do horror specials that will be created by professional food artists. So you should expect spiders, eyeballs, and many other ghoulish food decoration. And you'll see a lot of dry ice used in drinks. They're going to offer blood red shots and syringes. They're trying to do something that is both classy and grotesque. Which, I mean, so far we've got a couple of stories. I mean, this is the Hannibal thing. But they're also talking about doing booths in it that are based around different characters. So there will be a Voorhees booth, and there will be a Krueger booth. That they want to try to make this. So maybe it's a little bit Planet Hollywood, but taken into a horror level as opposed to there's the Terminator's leather jacket, and here's Gulliver Travels giant balls.
Well, or just stay away from the Green Inferno booth, because anyone who sits there doesn't leave.
Leave your tongue out before you leave.
If you look behind you, you'll see next week's appetizer.
So that'll be interesting. I love food and I love horror, so I'm looking forward to that. I totally realized that I forgot to let Mark talk about what he actually does, and I feel like a dick. So I'm going to make you do that now before we talk about the movie.
Okay. No, we were fine with me not talking about.
No, you're going to talk about it. That's why you're here.
Okay. Okay. Well, I do. I try not to sit down and think of all the things I do, but I do mainly movie reviews right now on my YouTube channel. I also have small shorts and other things that come to mind. I just post on my YouTube channel, but mainly it's been mostly movie reviews over the last many years here. And I also have a podcast, which I do. Initially it started out as just a thing saying, hey, what can I do? And now we're creeping up on episode 100. So we've got a podcast that we do that's a spoiler-filled podcast, and we cover all movies, new release stuff, as well as we do themes where we did, favorite horror movies, or we did favorite holiday films. And also occasionally I'll work in there subjects like, are the Oscars still relevant? Or, are the holiday classics really that good? We did a few of those recently as well. So I try to keep it a bit of a variety on the show. And then I also do movie reviews, both written and a weekly video segment for We Live Entertainment. And it's a horror Thursday, and I bring in a horror film every Thursday, and they haven't balked yet at the films that I've brought, and I've brought some pretty crazy films to the show, so and they haven't kicked me off the island yet, so I must be doing something right there. And I just if it's movie related, I'm usually doing something. Guest on a podcast too called Astro Radio Z, which is a cult underground film type podcast. So been on that a few times as well. So I'm just an internet whore.
Sounds like Corey.
Yeah. We like horrors here.
Well, there you go.
I mean, unfortunately, Matt used to kill them for the rating system.
Very fun viewers. Awesome. Well, yeah. So, thanks for coming. Sorry,
Yeah, sure.
Fuck the dog. Didn't talk about what you do, because why else would you come on our show unless you got to tell the 7 people that listen what you do?
It's just to talk about films and to see what you thought about this old film from this old man. So yeah, we're gonna talk about this movie. We watched The Stuff, which this
I don't know how to describe it. Like three-quarters of the way through, my wife is like, "Is this even a horror movie? What is happening right now?" And I said, "I don't know. The marshmallow fluff is trying to murder the city." People loved eating the shit out of this marshmallow fluff, and then it took over their brain. Corey, can you explain what this movie was, please? Because I'm just on a tangent of complaining.
Thematically, you were asking me about it when I was at work today, and you were like, well, what is this exactly? And I said it's closer to the things that were more subversive storytelling in the idea of, like, it talks about society in a way that it pinpoints things that are wrong with where we are, especially in the way of commercials and advertising and stuff. That's what it's a lot about. So if you think about the scenes in RoboCop, where they would show commercials and they would have the "I'll buy that for $1" guy. That is the kind of things that you see in this. A lot of this was broken up with there are commercials of them selling the stuff, and part of it is the storyline is they find the woman who was selling it to people, and she starts to realize that it's evil and it's taking over people's minds and things. But we get insertions of Abe Vigoda and the woman who was from the Wendy's commercial, the "Where's the Beef" lady, show up partway through this and do a commercial for it. Brooke Adams does a commercial. There's just so many different things that it's selling you this shit that nobody needs, but that everybody winds up wanting, and they become kind of brain dead to it. So it's a little bit like the Stepford Wives or Body Snatchers, except with an edible component. Also, They Live. I think another thing that would very be close to is They Live.
It does have a They Live vibe to it, definitely. I love this film, and I'm so glad you guys were open to watching it, even if you didn't like it, because I watched this when it first came out, well, on cable, not in the theaters, because it really didn't get any release anywhere near here, but I've got my original VHS, but I love the message and stuff, which is funny because even though it's got dated references in it, the overall theme of it could still apply today. I mean, I could see this getting a remake a bit and still making it relevant today and not changing much of the theme in it of consumerism, and being addicted to the stuff. And I just love the themes in here and the light tone to it and the odes to the different horror films, especially like, the Blob. It's got the Blob. Yeah. It's like kind of like the Blob crossed with Body Snatchers, which is funny because Larry Cohen, who wrote this, wrote a film, Body Snatchers, as well as the Maniac Cop series, and more recently, he wrote Cellular and Phone Booth. So, I mean, he's done a lot. He didn't direct a whole lot, but he did write a lot. And in this one, he's making the statement on consumerism. And I thought that was just great to see in this just little B film, basically, that they're covering such a kind of serious subject in a comedic and
so
blobby way.
Collectively, the two of you just blew my fucking mind. Because here I just thought that this was a shit movie. No, it's actually really a narrative on society and how society likes the stuff. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's a statement about consumerism. There are the people who find this stuff aren't even, like, smart or successful. They're just people who are kind of mining for this company, and they discover this stuff coming out of the ground, and they're like, what the hell is that? I don't know, but it sure tastes good.
When the movie started, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Corey, but when the movie started and the guy just starts eating the stuff as it's coming out of the ground, I literally paused the movie to make sure that I didn't accidentally start it in the middle.
Right.
Just like, what the fuck did I miss? It's just eating shit bubbling out of the ground. And that was, I don't even know how do you explain that? Like, would either of you, if you saw something bubbling out of the ground, just be like, I wonder what it tastes like?
Well, I'm sure he held it up to his nose first, because that's our first safety instinct, is you see something and you touch it first.
No, you don't touch it.
But everybody does. Every person throughout the entire history of the world, you touch something first, and if it's hot and it burns you, then you stop touching it. But if it's not harmful, then you smell it. We are built of following our senses. That's why things that taste bitter are usually bad for us. Our senses have been honed to realize that bitter and acidic are things that are usually not good, because they will cause us pain, and we go for things that are sweet or savory. That's how evolution brought us to where we are.
Get out of here.
Well, it adds the comedic point. Yes, they just really automatically, they put in their mouth, and you're just sitting there going, "Who the hell does do that?" But that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek approach that they take with this. But yeah, underlying, there's a lot of crazy themes in here you wouldn't expect. I mean, there's statements on the FDA. You get Danny Aiello showing up among one of a few more known faces in this film, which always surprises me.
You get a fucking good fella.
Yeah, you get freaking good fella in here. And you got his character who is the guy who did the FDA study, and you come to find out that there's some shenanigans going on in there of people constantly being moved around by the government. So you get a bit of government conspiracy in there. You get the Chocolate Chip Charlie character.
Oh, I love that guy.
Cleavon Little.
He was great.
I kept waiting for him to interpret what other people were saying by yelling at the screen.
Yeah. That was Garrett Morris.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
Yeah. No, Cleavon Little was from Blazing Saddles. No, he was Garrett Morris, who's been in a lot of horror films as well as just films in general, and he was great. I loved his character, the Chocolate Chip Charlie character, and just the way he played it. I mean, they all know, it's one of those things. I just in fact finished recording my Independence Day Resurgence review, which I know many people hate. That's fine. Me, I had a blast with it because. I'm sorry to
interrupt you again. That's all I do here. But we're actually going to go see it today. But it would have been cutting it too close to record this. Did the movie suck or not?
It depends on what kind of movie you're expecting. Many people are saying it sucked and it was boring. I enjoyed it because it had the spirit of Starship Troopers in it.
Better than the stuff.
Better than the stuff. Well, you hate it. You thought it was a shit movie, so.
Well, fuck. Starship Troopers, right there. That's another thing that the stuff seems to have similarities to, because they're preaching the whole propaganda of becoming a citizen and going to fight the bugs, and that's what everybody wants to grow up to be. And it's obvious. It's like we're kind of brainwashing you to do this, because why the fuck would you want to fly across space and go fight bugs? Why is that what you're trying to ascend to, other than the fact that you need to save your whole fucking planet?
Right, and just like IDR and the stuff, IDR wasn't being serious, but many people I think were going in looking for a serious film, and if they do, they will be drastically disappointed. But if you look at the little
shit blow up.
Yeah, well there you go. You'll see shit blow up. But with the stuff, they're not taking themselves too seriously, but they're still covering some serious points, and I guess I like that mixture in here. That on the surface, it looks like kind of a goofy thing about white whipped cream type stuff taking over people's minds and taking over the kids' family, but underneath, you got some statements here about society that still apply. And it was great seeing Paul Sorvino as a crazy conspiracy soldier, though. I loved his character in this.
I mean, there was definitely parts of the movie that, I don't want to say that it was a shit movie throughout. It was just a weird concept, and it was kind of hard to get a grasp of and to get a feel of what they were trying to accomplish. Now, ask Corey. I watched movies for face value. It just entertained me for an hour and a half. Dance Monkey Dance. At no point was I ever watching this movie to try and figure out what message they were trying to portray. Now, from an entertainment standpoint, it was a rather entertaining movie. I mean, guys' heads split in half and marshmallow fluff fell out. And marshmallow fluff was shot out of all over the place, and from a brainwashy zombie standpoint, it was not a bad movie. It's just
also Michael Moriarty, his lead character. it was so hard to get a feel of like, do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? Because he came in and he was just such an asshole from the very beginning, and he seemed like that I work for the government kind of guy, or I work for big business, because he had done both, and he's always out for himself, and he keeps introducing himself as Mo, and he's like, because no matter how much money you give me, I always want Mo. He makes a joke twice, and that was a bad joke both times. It doesn't improve the more it happens.
I laughed the first time.
Yeah, but he keeps just like he's a dick, and he never is not a dick, and he lies and seduces this woman into sleeping with him, and she just like goes for it right away, like, go dig up everything you can on this guy, and I'm gonna go fuck him in his hotel room. But he does become the hero of the movie, and he does protect the little boy, and does all this stuff, trying to essentially do right to save the world, yet he didn't seem like a guy who was out there to save the world. He just seemed like a guy who was like, well, they're paying me, so I'm doing what I can.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those where he's a bad guy. He does industrial espionage, but I think it was because he's always I think he might have taken the felt the approach of he's taking it to the rich, sticking it to the man type of thing, especially because he's ex-FBI, which but
he worked for Herbert Hoover.
Yeah,
and he blackmailed Paul Sorvino's character. And he's like, hey, you might not realize this. I worked for Herbert Hoover once, and I got fired as I was blackmailing you and not sending stuff to your wife. And Sorvino's like, I will fucking kill you. Well, why don't we talk about how your militia should save the world? That whole interaction, when they brought Sorvino in, his character was just so crazy. It was like the over-the-top military character, except the Michigan militia version of the over-the-top military character, because it wasn't like he was working for the government anymore. It was a secret army that had nothing to do with anybody. And he owns a couple radio stations, so we're going to go to the radio stations and inform everybody. In 1985, if you own 2 radio stations in Atlanta, that'll everybody in the world will listen to you.
But but like I said, I mean, if you look at this, you could easily tailor this story for modern times. I mean, he owns radio stations. Easily could be still radio station talk show host guy or a podcast.
He would be Dougie Doug in the Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yeah, I love the effects they used for a limited budget, and I think that's part of the reason why this story doesn't go maybe the direction it does, because they're working with very limited funds. But they did, as a side note, the scene in the hotel where the stuff comes out of the bed and starts attacking the one guy. That's the actual same room they filmed Johnny Depp's scene in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh yeah, and it might have been the same room that they used for Turbo to dance on in Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, it's the gimbaled room, which they can move back and forth, and so that's how they did the effects for the stuff. Is they had the stuff pouring, and they would turn the room so the stuff would crawl up the wall. So
it was a good scene.
It was a good scene, especially for a film like this. I mean, don't get me wrong. I fully recognize that it's kind of a low-budget cheese film, but I think there's more going on, and I know a lot of people who've watched this who, mostly around my age, but they really enjoy it. But not everyone talks about it because it's just this odd B film. It is an odd film if you just watch it. It's like, wow, but then you get Sorvino saying, I love the sight of blood, but that's disgusting.
No, the best Sorvino line in this entire thing is when he says, I will allow this colored man to speak. It was just like, but if you say any fucking liberal Russian bullshit on my radio,
if you say any of your commie Marxist bullshit, it's like, wow, man.
I mean, I would have watched the whole movie of them just going back and forth. The personalities were all extreme personalities, but that is what made it fun, and that's why you could tell that they were writing it for humor. The backstory of the stuff was just something to hang the rest of the stuff on.
yeah, they came up with these characters and wanted to use them in such a way, so they came up with this kind of the stuff. And yeah, we don't really need too much of an origin. It comes from the ground. That's all you need. There you go. It's stuff that tastes good that comes from the ground. We don't need to go any more than that, you know. And I like that too. I think there's, again, on my little soapbox, get off my lawn, but I think there's too much hand-holding in modern horror films for the most part, or modern films in general, but especially horror films. Like, I don't need an entire backstory for every character, or I don't need a full explanation of the crazy shit going on. You know, you say aliens, okay, there you go. You know, I mean, yeah. And I think they do too much of that now, and not all, but many of the, especially wide release horror films, they hold your hand and this is what we meant, and you know, they'll touch on something at the beginning of the film, and then a half hour later they'll revisit it, and another half hour they'll revisit again in case you didn't get the point the first 2 times.
And they didn't try to. This is going to sound dumb. They didn't try to candy coat it by saying, okay, this is about saving the world just to save the world. I mean, the people who were a part of it really, their needs and their personalities rang through. Mm-hmm. So when Mo goes at the end to see the 2 guys who are basically like the old fuckers from
Trading Places.
And he goes in there and he brings the kid Jason with him, and he's introducing Jason as like, well, Jason's got nothing to lose because this shit already took his family away from him, and they force feed them the stuff as they're about to release it again as the taste, and like we can get all of the bad things like the mind control out of it and just sell the addiction, so that we can keep selling this forever and ever. And they basically force them to eat it. That it's just such a perfect moment because it's like we didn't save the world and we're heroes now. It's like, yeah, we saved the world, but fuck these assholes that did this in the first place and think they're going to get away with it again.
Yeah, it's a quirky film, but it's got some messages in there, and I just love it. I have so much fun every time I watch the film. I just smile. And when Chocolate Chip Charlie's head splits open and the stuff starts pouring out of his mouth.
I mean, it was this real moment, and it was sort of like They Live, where you think, okay, we're going to win, and then shit starts happening and go, oh, crap, we're not going to win. We fucked up. I thought it was going to be one of those things like the end of Return of the Living Dead, where they just drop the bomb on everybody because that's the only thing you do. Just nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Fuck it.
Fuck it.
The old fuck it mentality once in a while.
I also thought it was interesting for a film like this where they have the brothers actually played by 2 actors who were brothers. So,
actual brothers.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and the older brother has done like a lot of voice work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's done a lot of video game stuff in it. Well, because of his face. I mean, it's one of those things where nothing wrong with his face, but it's a recognizable face. He kind of looks like a hopped up Greg Brady. So.
Yeah, and the younger brother was on quite a few episodes of Who's the Boss at one point. I think he was the little kid's friend. Yeah, it's funny because you see people in this that you recognize as 80s people. Certainly people who are, oh yeah, I remember that person. And just the sudden insertion of Abe Vigoda always makes me happy. I always check the website every once in a while, just like, Abe Vigoda still alive? Right on. Cool.
Oh, yeah. It's
little known, Patrick Dempsey is in this uncredited as an underground stuff buyer, and Mira Sorvino is also in it as a factory worker. Like, just Eric Bogosian is in it as a supermarket clerk, and I actually think I remember seeing him and going, wait, I know that guy. So it's just kind of cool. Like, this was where you're seeing people as extras who are going to wind up being a bigger deal later on.
Well, yeah, I mean, they all got to start somewhere. People pick on B films and such like this, but I'm like, that's where many of your big stars got their starts from. People pick on independent horror films a lot, low production or whatever. I'm like, that's where a lot of your big names cut their teeth. I mean, freaking Tom Hanks was in Mazes and Monsters, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Oh man, that is a bad movie.
That is a bad movie. But I mean, Johnny Depp, it was Nightmare on Elm Street. Aniston in Leprechaun. I mean,
What was Brad Pitt's horror movie that he was in way back when?
Oh, crap.
It was some high school thing.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but I think I think Burt Reynolds was in a horror movie early in his career, and I mean many of these actors and performers were, that are big names, got some start in horror films, in bit parts or whatnot, just to get work. So, yeah, it's films like this that I love, and there's something kind of endearing about them too, because they feel so genuine too. I mean, you've got many people nowadays trying to do grindhouse, trying to do B films on purpose a lot of times, and I think they miss the point that the B films weren't always trying to be bad on purpose. They thought, they're making something legitimate and honest, and
they were 100% bought into it. And yeah. I mean, you talk about a Roger Corman. Roger Corman believed in the shit he was making, and it shows that there's a definite love for the stuff that's there. Whether or not it's good, that's public opinion, but he put every bit of effort into making these films as best as he could, and I think that's why people love them, even if they are shitty.
Yeah.
And I love it when an actor will come back and do these things. Like Johnny Depp had gotten to a point where he was pretty big after doing 21 Jump Street and all these things, and then still showed up in Freddy's Dead as tribute to the fact that he was in the first movie. That's kind of a neat thing to say, that you're never too big to do these things if it's something that you appreciate that gave you a start in the first place.
Yeah, I like that when they come back to it and acknowledge where they came from versus going, no, I wasn't in that. What are you talking about? Yeah, you were. Look, right here.
Yeah, we were talking about Crystal Bernard in Slumber Party Massacre 2 and how we don't think that that's something that she goes to people and says, oh, yeah, I did Slumber Party Massacre 2 before I was on Wings for 9 years. It's like, no, we don't talk about that movie. But then you find people like Casey who loves that movie, and to her, that was her introduction to Crystal Bernard as an actress. So never discount something that you did, because odds are there's at least one person out there that is going to be your biggest fan because of that one thing that you feel ashamed of.
I have a funny story about biggest fans.
Ooh,
let's hear it.
Yeah. Okay, so Mark, you may or may not know, I play in a band, and I've done so for a very long time. And there was a point at which it was potential for that to be my source of income. And at that time, I was still living with my parents when I was in Sheboygan, and there was the kid who came to all of our shows, and we knew who he was. He was very nice. He was super fan, to say the least. And there was one time I parked my car in my parents' driveway, and I was talking to my dad, like in the living room, and he just looks out the window and he goes, "Please tell me why there are a group of kids pointing at my house right now." And I look outside, and the superfan had brought friends over to show him where I lived. I was like, "Fuck that!"
And they're digging through your garbage and finding a discarded copy of Hellraiser and going, "What the fuck is this? I don't know. I thought we'd find his underwear. Oh, they're in here too. They're hugely soiled. I don't know what to make of this.
Look at the skid mark on this one.
I'm gonna make a hat out of it."
Yeah, good old superfans.
We can make a hat while we watch Hellraiser. This is his copy of Hellraiser.
I found a crusty sock. I wonder what that's from.
I've got his DNA. I can make another Matt Stein.
Another one. Fuck. That's the time I'm gonna go back to Sheboygan, and there's just gonna be like 6 me's running around, and Superfan will have made a little me army.
Little Frankensteins.
Oh. Each time he makes another me, it sucks a little more and more. Yeah, it just sucks at life, Corey, you dirty son of a bitch. So yeah, I don't know the stuff. I'm really not upset that you brought this movie. Please don't think that I'm like upset that this is what you made me watch.
I'm always I love introducing films like this to people, even if they hate it, just because I like to hear what people think about it, because I mentioned it. My kid coined it, and I've used the term a couple times in my review, especially in my Independence Day review. We sometimes look at older films through, as he told me once, Dad, you're looking at this through rose-colored nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think sometimes we do that with some of these films. Is that they're classics to us, and so they're actually better sometimes than what they actually are, but they're better in our heads. And when we talk about them, because you haven't watched it for years, and then you'll actually sit down and watch it, and you go, oh, or someone else will watch it and go, yeah, about that movie that you think is a classic.
No shame at all. My two favorite movies are Zapped with Scott Baio and Willie Ames, and Xanadu.
Oh, nice.
So,
And my wife.
And stop being on this podcast. That'd be
My wife is not a fan of Xanadu, and I have tried to instill a love for it in her the 18 years that we've been together, and it just hasn't happened. But it's never going to stop me from trying, man. And that's the thing, is I watch it, and to me, it's the same magic in my heart that I felt when I saw it in the theater as a little kid, and it will never go away.
I've got the vinyl soundtrack of Xanadu.
I've owned it on vinyl twice, on 8-track twice, because I wear them out. Cassette tapes, CDs, and then the DVDs and the Blu-rays and VHS. I even had it on Betamax that I taped off of TV at one point. So I have gone the whole gamut of Xanadu ownership.
But I mean, the stuff, I fully recognize it's cheese, but I do enjoy stuff like this. And films are subjective, but I always enjoy. I was glad you guys were open up to it, because always love introducing odd stuff, because sometimes it catches with people and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, fully recognize that. That's different people's tastes. But occasionally you get that where, wow, you showed me this film and I loved it. Are there others like this? And you go, why, yes, there are. It's suddenly I dust off my VHS of Igor and the Lunatics, or the various other odd films that I have. My Buckaroo Banzai, VHS.
So it's funny that you mentioned rose-colored nostalgia glasses, because last week we did review Slumber Party Massacre 2, which I first saw for the first time in high school. So I'm sure Corey didn't really find it to be a great movie, much similar to how I feel about The Stuff. But I watched it, and it brought back all those memories of high school, and watching it with some really good friends of mine, people that I'm still friends to this day with. One who is actually super butthurt that I didn't give him a shout-out for saying that we watched it together. So, JR, fuck you and your neck leather, you dirty, dirty son of a bitch. There, that's out of the way.
And JR is just petting his little grow-your-own mat, just like, it's okay, baby, I know you love me.
Fuck JR, we let him back into our band so he can kiss my ass.
Is that a precursor? Is that something that's necessary?
Shh. But yeah,
when I say "Drown the Lifeguard" is the name of the band, I mean "Drown in my asshole, you beautiful son of a bitch."
Yeah, he's gotta toss my salad. But yeah. So back to what we were saying. Had I seen this movie originally in high school or at a younger time, when you decided to watch it, I probably would have been more excited, much to when Casey wanted to watch Slumber Party Massacre 2, where I was like, fuck yes, because this reminds me of this point in my life. That was a good time. So I completely get what you're saying, and I really appreciate the fact that it kind of works on all sides.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter really how we felt about the movie, because you came in with a love for this movie, and that is going to get somebody who's never seen it to look at it with a viewpoint that they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. The person who listens to this and goes, okay, well, this guy, sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and it sounds like he's really into this flick. I should check and see what's deeper there. And Matt is really open to that kind of thing. He comes in and he's like, this was a piece of shit, and then we talk about it for a minute. He goes, yeah, well, maybe it's not as much of a piece of shit as I thought it was. Maybe it's just my attitude. And he lets himself kind of grow with that, and I think that that's exciting for us. Is when we have guests on, it does take us out of just the expectations we have of a movie going in, where we're like, okay, is this smart? Is it interesting? Is it gory enough? Or is there something underneath that maybe we're just not catching because we weren't in the right frame of mind coming in, or because we didn't watch it at the time that you were supposed to watch it, which in 1985, the world is a very different place.
Yes. I mean, we're talking mid-'80s, so you're at the height of the consumerism era. So, you know, the fact that they had the Where's the Beef Lady in there, we catch that because we remember that. My kids wouldn't catch that. I mean, it's the same thing with the reference at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy when you have, and it's spoiler here, Howard the Duck at the end, and you have half the audience, and it was great, I remember that. You're sitting in the theater and you have half the audience, we're waiting to the end credit sequence, and they have Howard the Duck sucking, you know, he's drinking, and half the audience went, "Oh my God, it's Howard the Duck!"
Yep.
And the other half went, "Who?
What? Why did I wait for this? They're not going to show us something else with Thor?
wait, who is that?" And so then you have all the parents going to all the teens and the kids going, "I'll show you when we get home."
Yeah. Here's my secret Shane closet. Here's George Lucas's Howard the Duck and the stuff. But again, there's somebody who owns that shit. Leah Thompson they did a cover of her for the new Howard the Duck comic book, and she's in the book as herself because of her being in this movie, and she doesn't remember being in the movie, I guess. So, and she's totally in on it. The actress is she's aware of it. She's like all for it. Leah Thompson gets it because she's just like, yeah, at one point or another, I did this movie. People did not react well to it, but now it's beloved. There's a whole cult movement of Howard the Duck that you would not have thought about back in the 80s when this came out. And then there was Space Camp, and we don't talk about Space Camp.
And if Hollywood's listening, she still looks as good as she did back then, if not better. So if you do Howard the Duck remake, just recast her as that same role.
Or just have her come here.
She can wear. We can reenact the Howard the Duck bed scene.
I'll reenact the entire series of Caroline in the City. I don't give a goddamn.
And Matt's like, oh boy, here they go. Oh.
I don't remember all these lines. I just do.
Corey does this, and I just let him go. I let him have his moments. Because trust me, I do it to him, and when I do it to him, they end up being 3 hours long.
Howard the Duck, PG. It was PG, and it showed duck breasts.
Come on, it did.
You know?
I like duck breasts.
And
like
nice orange glaze.
Duck breasts. Yeah, right? Orange glaze.
Which is a euphemism.
Yeah.
So this movie, how much of this movie do you think was actually scripted, and how much of it do you think was ad-lib? Because every time Chocolate Chip Charlie shows up and is dealing with Mo, I feel like the lines were just like they just were running with it, and it didn't matter what one of them was saying. The whole thing just felt like I could have been watching any of the people from an Apatow flick at this point. It just was so random. It didn't make any sense for the story. Chocolate Chip Charlie's whole background of like all my family just fucked me and stole all my shit. And I'm gonna go kick their asses. I've got fucking fists of fury, and did someone write this?
My hands are legal. Yeah, well, because he kept reminding him too. Do you want a gun or whatever? He's like, don't you remember? My hands are lethal weapons. It's like, yeah. I now that you mention it, yeah, thinking back to the dialogue, I think they had an outline of where they needed to go with the film and have to hit certain beats. But yeah, especially between Mo and Chocolate Chip Charlie, those felt improv. And even when Sorvino shows up, it felt improv. It felt like, okay, this is your character, go. You know?
We're not going to waste a lot of time. We're not going to put this on paper. It's a movie about whipped cream. Yeah. Okay, so let's just see what happens, man. We trust you.
Here it is. You're a crazy military guy, and go. All right, there you go. Well, because at one point, Mo makes mention of Herbert tells Chocolate Chip Charlie to call his FBI agent Herbert, and it's the Dune author.
Yeah.
He actually gives the name of the author of Dune. You know, yeah. I mean, there's all moments like that in the dialogue that make you just wonder. Did we just give him kind of a sketch? Okay, you got to at least work this line in there and this line in there, because yeah, some of those scenes are just. Especially as the film goes on, it seems like it was scripted in the beginning, and then it just kind of they just went loose with it afterwards, to where at the end they had maybe a sentence, and that was it.
100% off fucking mode.
Yeah, and I was surprised that it actually had a clear ending, although it did kind of get you with the narrative of someone looking at the screen and telling you, and this is what happened. And we made it, and it's okay. But they show you some scenes to give you the actual closure to it, so you understand that okay, we made it out of here. We didn't just give up partway through the movie and drive everybody through the giant fucking hole in the plot.
Cora's not butthurt or anything about the hole in the plot. Maybe a little bit.
Butthole. All right, so I think we got to go for ranking. So we usually go off of 3 scores. We've got rewatchability, story, and scariness. I have a feeling scariness is going to rank low. You can go as low as a 0 and as high as a 5. So rewatchability, what do you give us?
Oh, well, I mean, I picked the film, but I'd give it 4. Because for select people, but it definitely, even though with the cultural references, I think it has entertainment value. Maybe not rewatchability by yourself, but you watch it first by yourself and then invite some friends over and have an ice cream party and watch it again, you know? Or you
guys
watch
want to cream and watch this movie I brought?
I hope the ice cream party involves like Dawson and doing the banana split ice cream on his nipples, and like in Varsity Blues.
Yes. But I mean, for me, it's a 4. But you know, it's one of those where I still watch it by myself, admittedly. But I can see where people wouldn't. But on a whole, yeah, 4. 4 out of 5.
I don't even. 2 maybe. I feel like I can agree with Mark where there's a few friends of mine where I'd be like, you guys should probably watch this, and we should get really drunk while we watch it because it'll make it a better movie. But outside of like the 2 people that I know, JR's neck leather being one of them, never. I would never watch this movie again.
I'm going to give it a 3. I have to up it a point simply because it's one of those movies that I told my wife, hey, we're going to do this stuff. She goes, oh, God damn it, that's great. She's very excited about this movie, and I think she's a little pissed that I watched it without her.
Well, you'll have to go back and watch it again with her.
Yeah, and that's why it's a 3. All right, so story 0 through 5.
Oh, I'll give it another 4. Not phenomenal story, but again, if you look just under the surface of it, you can see what they were trying to go for, which was a pretty bold move for a movie like this, to where if you first look at it, you go, oh, it's just cheesy, blob ripoff, and then you look underneath and go, oh no, there's actually more going on here than that. They're making a statement that can still carry over today, so I give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4 with you because for all the reasons you just said, it has a lot more that it offers than just simply being stuff coming out of people, and that the advertisements, the thought process of who the characters are, why they do the things they do, and the improv aspect, I think was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So there's a heart to this. Matt?
2?
Yeah, you can shit on it. That's fine.
You can shit. That's it.
You're not over the fact that they just ate something that was coming up out of the ground.
Just that, but it wasn't until you explained to me why the movie kind of took the tone that it did for me to understand it. So, 2, because if you give me a block of cheese, I want cheese. I don't want a fucking city with people and feelings inside that cheese.
Yeah, well, just think about it. Instead of giving you cheddar, we gave you a nice blue, veiny, smelly cheese.
I do like blue cheese, but I also like to put that on
You also
top
like blue veins.
of chicken wings, penis veins. I saw what you were doing there. You son of a bitch. Scariness, Mark.
It's scariness is 2.
A 4. You can say 4.
No. It's not that scary though. The scene with Chocolate Chip Charlie, I'd say, actually is kind of damn creepy, and the bed scene. But overall, scariness, it's 2.5 maybe, middle of the road type of scariness maybe, but it's not meant to be scary. It's meant to be kind of a fun, tongue-in-cheek film. You know, the tone of this, even from the beginning, it's not meant to be a scary horror film. It's meant to be entertaining, kind of ha-ha horror. So
I agree. 1.
Yeah, I'll give it a 1. Anytime that the stuff covered up somebody's face and was suffocating like a facehugger from Alien, I got a little creeped out. And, of course, the idea that Mo was so easily able to con his way into bed with that chick just like it fucking blows my mind every time. No, there's no way in hell. I mean, that's 80s pre-AIDS kind of just lackadaisical. Sure, I'll go fuck this guy because he sounds like he might be rich.
It was a different time, Corey.
It was definitely a different time. Okay. So you can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pot@gncast.com. Get your requests in for movies for us to cover. Although we do have guests booked up through the end of July, so it might be a while before we get to do...
August.
Oh, shit, August yeah. August now. Yeah, well, the end of July would be August.
No, we're to August.
Yeah, you can leave us a message on the website. You can let us know. We'd like to hear from you and find out what your favorite part of the show is. And if there's something else you would like us to do differently or better, just give us a little bit of feedback. We'd really love to hear from you on that. You're going to hear that across the different Galactic Netcast shows because we're trying to grow the network and do things better for you guys, the audience, because that's why we're here every week. We love you guys, and we'd like to see what we can do to improve your experience with our programs. But you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcast of Terror and subscribe to us via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, or whatever your favorite podcatcher is, and leave us feedback on which one of you like. You can leave us a review. We prefer 5 stars. We'll take lower if that's what you feel like giving us, but hey, give us 5 stars.
Less than 5 stars, they'll come to your house and slit your throat.
And rummage through your garbage and steal your dirty socks and make new yous. All the subscription links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe, and you can also join our Facebook group under Galactic Netcasts. Mark, one more time, where can people find you? Where's the best place to find you and your content?
The best place to probably start to find my content is specialmarkproductions.com. As I put it, the one-stop shop for all your movie man needs. I have links there for my 6 latest Final Cut episodes that I do on my channel, and there's a link that'll take you to the channel, link to take you to our Facebook pages. My Spoiler Room archives are there. We're doing a special series running up to our 100th episode where we're covering sci-fi films, old sci-fi films, because I wanted to. So we're doing Logan's Run, Flash Gordon. We're doing we're doing some Enemy Mine. We're doing some really interesting sci-fi for that month, and you can catch it there. We've got a running series that we did it last year, 25th anniversary, and this year we have the Big 4-0 special is what we call it, where we're celebrating films that are celebrating their 40th anniversary. So that's been kind of fun as well. So yeah, specialmarkproductions.com. You go from there, you can find links to my other stuff as well as stuff here and other friends and people we've had on the show. So I've got to do interviews. I've got interviews there with Fred Olin Ray, with Patrick Reed Johnson, the guy who directed Spaced Invaders. I've got a interview there with the one and only Maggie from Last Starfighter.
Oh, wow.
Catherine Mary Stewart.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that was one of my first
Night
big
of the
ones.
Comet. I mean, are you kidding me? I was totally in love with her.
Yeah, so I've got interviews there with them as well as independent filmmakers. SpecialMarkProductions.com. You can find all that stuff there or links from there to other places.
Jesus.
Trust me, my wife still gives me a hard time about that interview. So
I'm gonna be sifting your garbage.
Yeah. It's like Corey has a hard time with it too. Different kind of hard. Corey,
where can people find nudes of you on the internet?
Oh, you can find nudes of me nowhere. I have
Believe
successfully.
what you want to believe.
I can scrub the internet of said nudes. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Matt the Lifeguard. Corey.
You can find comics that I help work on at donetscomics.com.
Terrific. Well, Mark, thank you very much again for wasting away roughly an hour and a half of your life to talk in a moderately shitty movie with us.
It's my pleasure. I always enjoy talking movies, especially with people who have a passion for them. Whether or not you like the movie we talk about, it's still fun to discuss. I think, I guess my final thought is, films are subjective, and people need to take that into account. And I think the internet loses that focus sometimes to where someone may enjoy a film that you think sucks, and you can state as such that it sucks, but at least respect the fact that someone found some joy in the film.
Sounds very similar to the time that we were called fat hipsters on the internet.
You're always going to bring that up. And at the end of the day, Mark, what matters is not whether or not we like the movie, it's that we like you.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yes,
thank you.
you're more than welcome to come back at any point you want to. If you think of another movie that you really want to talk about, just let us know. We'll set up a date, and yeah.
I got a bunch of VHS. I'll dig through and see what I can find and what's on streaming.
Yeah, even if it's not on streaming, I've bought a couple movies to watch on the show, so I'm okay with that. I'm an adult. I go to work. I receive a paycheck, and so far they haven't bounced, so I'm fine.
That's good.
Yeah, right. So once again, Mark, thank you very much. We will have a link to his website in the show notes, so you can go ahead and see all that shit. And thanks again for watching Podcast here, and we will catch you guys next week. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop YouTube. Thank you very much, YouTube, for watching. Martin, sorry you won't get to see nipple.
Today.
Oh. Snapchat you a nipple there, big guy.